私はニック・ハインです。これはスノーボーディングじゃないのポッドキャストです。This is Nick Hyne, and this is the Not Snowboarding Podcast.
Welcome to episode number 26. I'm your host, Nate Musan. Before we get into today's episode, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Big Boulder Resort. Yesterday, my buddy Paul and I trucked it up to Lake Harmony, Pennsylvania for Big Boulder's annual May Day event. Huge thanks to the park crew for putting together a really fun setup, and thanks also to the mountain management for making enough snow over the winter that we could have a lift access top to bottom park in the middle of May. And since it's been a while since there have been any embarrassing photos of me on the internet, check out Paul Horning's Instagram for a video that he shot, unbeknownst to me, of me eating a banana on the way to the mountain. In this week's episode, AJ and I talk with New Zealand snowboarder Nick Hyne. Nick's also a filmmaker, an app developer, and quite the world traveler. Let's jump into the conversation with Nick.
Well, it's good that we caught you. I think there was going to be a storm supposed to be rolling through, and Nick was going to snowboard. You were filming for something, right?
Yeah, we're filming for, we're doing these cinemagraphs actually. So I don't know if you know what that is, but basically it's like a photo. It's kind of like a bit of a crazy one on the mind. It looks like a photo at first, but then there's like one thing moving within the frame. So quite often you might see a photo of like a bunch of people at a busy intersection or something like that. And then about 5 seconds in, somebody will like start moving. And then, so it's called a cinemagraph. It's kind of like a photo, but something moves. And they do them in GIFs or in video versions, but we're going to do one of those today with some snow falling, but it didn't quite happen.
Does that take a special camera? I'm picturing like the red camera or something like that.
We're actually filming it with a Sony FS7, which is a 4K camera, but no, you can do it with any camera. There's just a bit of work involved in post, kind of masking out the background and making it into a photo or like a screenshot, and then whatever's in the foreground starts falling, or there's just a little bit of movement.
Was this for like Diaries Downunder, or was this just like a personal thing to post?
This is a Diaries Downunder thing for some Air New Zealand social media.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
How did you get teamed up with like Air New Zealand? Like I think it's kind of rare to work with like an airline in snowboarding. How did that come about?
Yeah, well, the way that Air New Zealand came about basically was just the way that Diaries started basically was myself and my partner Ben. It was myself and my friend Ben, and we just did Diaries for 2 years. And then there was a production company in Sydney, and they kind of came on board as like sales agents for the series, and they approached Air New Zealand, and they were super stoked on the idea, and they've just kind of been really happy with what we've done so far.
I remember my first year I traveled to New Zealand. On the flight over, I'm like flicking through the movies, and I clicked on like sports or whatever, and then I saw snowboarding, and it was Diaries Downunder episodes, and I thought that was like insane to me. Like I could watch that on the plane.
Yeah, man, it's always cool to hear people's stories like that. Like people kind of say how they, flick through the entire series on the flight, and it's good. I think the airplane is one of the few places you're very attentive to media these days. Whether it's a magazine or whatever, you don't kind of have the distractions of everyday life. It's just you, your seat, and your screen.
Yeah, I guess that's true, because I've like definitely seen some movies on planes, and part of me is like, oh man, this is like the worst place to watch a movie. It's such a small format. But then at the same time, I'm like, if I'm watching a movie at home, it's just easy to get distracted. And there it's like I got nothing else going on, so might as well sit down and watch something.
Your eyeballs stay fixated on the screen. It's good.
That's sick.
I'm curious, you kind of threw out kind of casually like, we met up with this production company that was kind of our sales agent. How did that relationship develop? I'm sure it was, did they reach out to you, or you made it sound like really easy, like everything just fell in line? And I'm thinking of all of my friends that film that, haven't had a production company reach out to them. I'm just wondering how that relationship developed.
Yeah, well, So myself and Ryan, we basically just did the Diaries Down Under series the first year, just kind of off our own back. So basically just went to all my personal snowboarding sponsors, cap in hand, like we're trying to do this series, went to the local resorts. And then the following year, Ben was living in Perth, actually, in Australia. And he got a job with this production company. It was called Winter Volume, actually. And they were basically kind of getting content from the internet, posting it with news stories and profiling people. And he was working for them. And then he came back to New Zealand for the winter. We did Diaries and he did a bunch of stuff for them. And then kind of at the end of that season, the guy who was running Winter Volume at the time kind of just saw a lot of potential in Diaries with tourism avenues and stuff like that. And it was kind of always something that we talked about a lot, was kind of getting like the local tourism boards involved and getting different kind of companies involved. But we'd never really thought about taking it to a more kind of, bigger kind of, I guess, corporate market like that. So it was cool. And then he basically spent the summer like searching for sponsors and kind of the appropriate people to get involved with the series. And we just went for it. We're like, well, we kind of can't continue doing it for, a minuscule budget. Let's try and make it a little bit bigger and use some better equipment and take it to more people and show snowboarding in New Zealand to more people. And it worked out really well.
It's so cool because so many people end up doing similar projects in some ways, right? Like every little area has their crew that they film, but it goes to Instagram, to Facebook, to Twitter, and maybe their website, and that's kind of like the end of it, where you guys found out a way. And this is a need that the bigger corporation had too, right? They wanted to use snowboarding for their image. They wanted to have entertainment on the flight, and you just found this and really almost kind of created a sweet spot, created your own market. I think it's really impressive.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it's cool to hear you say that. It's always just, I guess, yeah. I mean, we're super lucky in New Zealand as well, in that we've got such a kind of, I mean, most mountain places are super beautiful, as you know, but just being able to get that kind of like those epic shots with the most insane, like kind of everywhere in Queenstown where we're based, like wherever you point a camera is pretty beautiful. So that's kind of one thing we've always focused on, and with kind of like the pure New Zealand type image, like all those images are really important. And whether it's snowboarding or skiing, it's all promoting snow in New Zealand and the ultimate kind of, winter destination. A lot of it is targeted towards the Australian market, because it's kind of like the lowest hanging fruit for New Zealand, I guess, in terms of getting visitors to the area.
Sure.
So it's been pretty good journey.
How is it? How is creating content maybe changed for you with working with more corporate sponsors? Has it been something that it's been difficult to maneuver, or has it been like just allows you just to do more?
Yeah, it's cool. Like most of our sponsors give us quite a lot of leniency in terms of the series, because it's kind of like a culmination of a few different people. We have different ways of kind of stoking each individual sponsor out, but we still have kind of like a mission in mind, or we have a location in mind, or we have a kind of a project in mind. So for the series, we still keep quite a lot of the creative direction, but recently we've been teaming up with the agencies. So there'll be a creative agency get involved, and there'll be a bunch of concepts that they'll kind of create and take to the brand manager or the likes, and kind of just work through that process with them and let them know what's possible, because they might have some, there might be a crazy idea that comes out and it's like, well, in New Zealand that won't work because of this, or in New Zealand that'll be an amazing idea because of this, that, and the other thing. So it's sometimes there's more kind of creativity allowed than in certain projects than the others, but most of the stuff we've done, we've been super lucky in that it's been pretty interesting, cool projects. Nothing's been too much of a boring nature. I mean, it's all snowboarding, so it's all pretty fun to me because I'm obsessed with snowboarding, so it's good.
Speaking to your obsession of snowboarding, AJ told me a ton about you, and besides snowboarding and all the work on the film side, you've also developed an app, right?
Yeah, the Trick Bag Snowboarding app. That's the app. So that's basically that came into being. It was about 2 years of development to make it, and it kind of just came out of like there was this thing called like snow dice sessions. It was a New Zealand nzsnowboard.com, like New Zealand snowboarding website, and they did these little sessions. I think AJ may have actually done one as well, but basically you throw the dice down and it tells you a trick to do, and I was going to be doing one the next day, and I just kind of wrote myself this list of like all the basics, regular and switch, and then just kind of went through all these tricks up the hill, and I was kind of like, this is actually a really good way to learn tricks, is by like creating a list. And it's kind of, I was thinking it's quite hard to actually know what like a 180 to nose press is, or a switch 180 to nose press, like what's the difference kind of thing. And I just started making this list, and that's kind of how it all started, and then it kind of developed. So basically the trick bag it's a big list of tricks, both rails and jumps, and from those lists of tricks you click on a video and it tells you exactly what that trick is. So it's kind of like an educational tool, but it's also really helpful in that it's like you make your trick wish list, and from that you can tick it off as you go, so, and you can name it or whatever. It could be like school holidays, or it could be whatever, 2015 winter season, and you've got your wish list. But if you've got kind of something there to work towards, you can go for it. And we've got a bunch of weird grabs in there, and like you can make yourself a little grab challenge or whatever.
Like Canadian bacon.
Canadian bacon would be one of those. Taipan, you name it. Roast beef, it's all in there.
So you said 2 years of development. What do you mean by that? I know that there's like these kind of app platforms out there that'll help you build an app. Did you use something like that where there's already the bones out there, or did you do actual raw development? And if so, how did you do it? Do you have the background, or did you have to like look to a friend or pay somebody?
Yeah, so I basically, once I kind of came up with the concept, my friend was kind of working in an app world, and he was working with a program called PhoneGap, which is an Adobe program actually, and it means that you can create an app on the web, and then you can export it to either like Apple or Google, whichever way you want to go, Apple or Android. And he just said, yeah, like I've got a friend who will be able to help you, and let's get it going. So he kind of got the bones together, and it was super basic. And then I was in Boreal, actually, of all places, in Tahoe, and I was on the chairlift with my friend Danny Medina, and he's an American guy, and he always comes to New Zealand. And I told him about the app, and he said, "Let me help you." And he just wanted to do it, just because he just was stoked on the idea, and he's been kind of coding some boring stuff, and he's like loves snowboarding and loves coding. And I said, yeah, let's team up on this. And we just kind of teamed up, and then put our heads down, and really that's when it started to develop. Like pretty much overnight I had this wish list, and I remember sending in this wish list of like, I just said, oh yeah, I want to have like a game of snow in it, and I want you to be able to create your own wish list, and I want to be able to have a quiz inside it, and these things. And overnight he just basically like transformed the app into kind of like how I really saw it coming together. And that's when I got stoked on the idea for real. I was like, wow, this is kind of bigger than we had thought. And it's crazy to think back now, like how much work we put into like, and I obsessed over it. I remember waking up in the middle of the night and like stressing that I'd like called a trick the wrong name or something. Like I was like, man, like what if somebody's going to get this app and there'd be a bunch of hate that I've called a trick the wrong name or something. Like, I don't know. I kind of went above and beyond what was kind of probably logical, but looking back now, it's kind of cool to like obsess over that. And, yeah, I mean, there's probably only about, it's cool that I was actually really, really stoked on getting it all together. And we're working on a second version at the moment. So,
well, it's definitely a rad tool to have like a library of trick ideas, like there's plenty of times where I'm writing something that like I've hit a lot. I'm like, man, what should I do on this? Or you're with your friends, like what should we try? And it's cool to have that reference to just be able to look stuff up, and it's also rad because your boy's in it. I got some grabs in there, so it's definitely worth downloading just for that. But
Yeah. What did you do? You did the suitcase, right?
I did. I hit him with the suitcase. I hit
The
him with
crail.
the crail. I gave him the tuck knee, and I gave him the cross rocket, and that was all in a day.
Yes.
I did it all in a day.
You
So
are one hell of a bloke.
it was fun. It was cool, and what was rad was there was a launch party for the app, and I've never been to a launch party for an app before, and so that was my first experience doing that. And it was super rad. Actually, shout out Danny Medina for not only developing the app or helping develop the app, but he picked me up to take me to that launch party, and I lived very very far from so he was definitely a rad dude.
He is one of Earth's greatest.
Yeah. So
you had like all these sleepless nights worried about, maybe I put a frontside indie in there or something that Todd Richards is going to tear me up about for having a trick named wrong. And you put all this work into it, and then you submit it to the App Store. Do you remember what did it feel like the day that the App Store said yes and you saw it in the App Store?
I do remember. It was kind of a crazy process though, because we submitted it a bunch of times, and I remember trying to just kind of getting the last screenshots together, because you have to get screenshots from an iPad, you have to get screenshots from an iPhone 4, an iPhone 5, and then kind of, you go through the whole process. And then if you don't get one of them right, it comes back and tells you that you've been denied because your screenshot's the wrong size. And then one of the versions we had still had
And that's probably like a multi-day turnaround. It's probably not just like you submit it and then they tell you right away. You probably have to sit and wait, right?
Yeah, exactly. So there's a little bit of a wait there. And yeah, we're just kind of we just spent kind of days and days at the end of it, because you think you're finished. We'd constantly think we're finished, and then we'd realize that there's this whole extra thing that needed to be done, just in terms of even where the videos are pulled from. So we had to get an account with a domain, and so you can download them to your phone, and then there's just all this extra work that just kind of ended up piling up at the end. I guess it's kind of like anything, like video editing or anything, it's podcast editing, no doubt. You think you're there, and then you've got to do an extra ton of work just to get those final little minor details sorted. So when it went through, I jumped on the phone straight away to Danny and was like, "You."
We did it.
We did it.
We made it happen.
Yeah.
That's something that I'm super proud of you for, because how many times have I thought oh, that'd be an awesome app. That'd be a cool app. And I've had these great ideas, but have never taken action on them. And you actually had an awesome idea and took action on it, and now it's there in the world. That feeling is just you created something. That's the most amazing feeling. It's a whole nother thing. You have different feelings, I like this, or I'm in love with somebody, but when you see something that you created come to life, that's another unique feeling that's hard to explain, and I'm proud of you for it, man. That's rad.
Yeah, totally. It's kind of, it's definitely just a passion project, because I kind of just I've always been a bit of a nerd as far as tricks, and I just it's something I just kind of wanted to have, exactly like you said, something in history, I've done this, and we're going to continue to develop it. So we got a ton of other stuff we want to do with it, because I think it's a really good platform, and there's a lot of ways to kind of build on where it is right now.
What can we look forward to in a second version, or what kind of stuff could we might be seeing in the future?
Basically from where it is now, we're just gonna smooth basically the whole user interface. We're just gonna make it a whole lot smoother. And there's just gonna be a few other subtle things that are gonna come in, and then maybe a few other bigger things down the line. But we're gonna do it kind of small steps.
Okay.
Same, but different, you might say?
Same, but different, basically. It's kind of, because it's quite hard because, like, as far as selling apps on the App Store, it's actually really hard to get money out of people. A lot of people download a free version, but as soon as you want $1 from them, there's just this huge barrier. So it's something that we're looking at, just kind of, creating more of a free version potentially, or and then kind of going off from there. But
that's a great question. I mean, I almost always download, if it's under $10, I'll pay the money, because I'm usually, you're getting more features and you're getting rid of ads. I want to like reduce all the subconscious ads I can in my life. So especially if it's the difference of $1 or $2, I'm paying the $1. Like, I don't want to see any ads. How are you monetizing the app right now?
Right now, we're just kind of letting it do its thing with people downloading it. It's kind of, you still get people like yourself who are willing to pay for an app. But we've kind of got a free version and a paid version, and, well, naturally there's tons of free downloads that come, but it's the paid ones that are just a little bit harder to get. So we don't have any sponsorship or anything like that at the moment. Kind of just wanted to let it be there and kind of let it be its own little entity. But it's not something that we're adverse to, down the line, is getting sponsorship and rolling it that way. I mean, if it means that the app can grow, then by all means, we're keen to make it happen.
How was trying to translate some of it in Japanese? Because I know it's in English and Japanese. Was there did you need someone else to help you with some trick names, or is it like how did the Japanese, I don't know, did they just say stale fish, or do they have the Japanese word for that?
Sushi.
Stay to fish this.
Stay to fish this.
Yeah. No, my friend Kenji Fukushima and I worked through it together. So between his Japanese and my English and vice versa, we went through a lot of things. But there's kind of just the way that Japanese is spelled and stuff like that. There are a lot of words we weren't sure, whether it was a longer sound or a shorter sound. So there's a lot of Googling and a lot of just kind of finding different resources to find out that we'd, just to make sure that we'd actually spelled everything right, and just the wording and stuff, it's it's quite, I mean, Japan's actually the biggest market for the trick bag app.
Oh, sick.
Yeah. United States of America, close second.
Oh, we're number 2? Did you hear that, Nate?
Number 2.
We got the Japanese are beating us.
Is there more of a, what do you attribute that to? I mean, is it just because you put it out there as a Japanese option and maybe they're starved for snowboarding content in Japanese, or what are your thoughts around why they're number 1?
My thoughts around it are that, if you open a Japanese snowboarding magazine, if you open a Japanese snowboarding magazine, probably 50% of the magazine is trick tips and how-tos and pros doing a frontside board slide on a box that's 1 foot off the ground, and it's got a full instruction, novel beside it. And Japanese are really into studying. They study, they focus, they train. They really like to kind of be in the dojo and try and progress really hard. Where I feel our, the English snowboard media is more focused on beautiful imagery and these insane pros who go to these super exotic locations with beautiful sunset and deep pow and whatnot, where Japanese magazines still, obviously, they get those epic images, but a lot of their content is dedicated to instructionals, and they just love to have something to kind of study over and learn from.
Yeah, that's super interesting, and it's interesting to me too, because I have a friend who's not Japanese, actually from Europe, but he's very analytical, and it's only been in these last few years of my life that I've been riding with him, and he's broken stuff down. We'll be riding together, and he'll want to know, how did you do that? And I'll be like, I don't know, I just did it. And then next lap we'll go again, and he'll say, okay, I see you're putting 75% pressure on your front foot, and it looks like you're starting to look towards the end of the rail here. And he'll just know all these little things. And it's actually, his name's Jim. It's actually helped me a ton.
Oh, Jamaican.
Yeah, Jamaican. And it's actually helped me a ton start to progress again, because I've started to, I mean, I'm not in that spot where when I was a kid, you know, you just kind of would look at somebody and then do it and kind of copy, learn that way, or just try something crazy. I'm in more of a rut as you're older, you know, you just kind of find yourself doing the same things. But when you have somebody with you, and he's doing it for his own benefit so he can learn too, but it's almost like breaking it down the way a coach would. So it's interesting that's cultural. I would expect that Japanese snowboarders will be sweeping the podiums over here in the next few years then.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are a lot of really good Japanese riders, aren't there? It's a cool it's a pretty interesting environment. And I mean, I've actually spent, I guess, 12 summers, New Zealand summers in Japan now, and I've got some really good Japanese friends, and a lot of I mean, yeah, a lot of what they do over there is they hang out with a crew. They like work all summer, save up all their money, and they just snowboard hard for like 4 months. And they wake up early. They stretch for like half an hour to an hour, and then they go and they snowboard all day until the last lifts, until they're absolutely, you know, just completely exhausted. Then they go home, jump in the onsen or whatever, you know, the hot spring, do a bit more relaxing, and then boom, back into it the next day. And they're always got like something in mind, you know, they're always focused on learning a trick. And I feel like that has helped my snowboarding a lot over the years, is just having that whole Japanese culture where like you go to the mountain, it's really fun environment, but you've always got something you want to learn that day, you know?
That's crazy. That's like such a drastic difference in how I think a lot of snowboarding, or people would think of snowboarding, at least in America, is like, you know, you wake up at whenever, you know, and you have some like Fruit Loops for breakfast, and then you like show up at about noon, maybe 1 o'clock, get like 2 runs in, and then you kind of go home. You know, you call it a day. Like that's typical.
Stop by the bar.
You stop by the bar, probably. You like maybe hit up Taco Bell on the way home. You know, it's definitely like a different kind of lifestyle. I feel like it's definitely more carefree than like focus. I mean, I guess there are those focused people. They're athletes, but
Yeah.
you know, not in general, I would say.
Yeah, well, the crews that I was hanging out with, it was just kind of, and it happens all over Japan. Like you just get like a crew. They might be sponsored by a shop or something like that, and they get a house together for the season, and like a lot of Japanese people even live in their cars for like an entire spring or an entire season type thing, just traveling around.
Kardanchi?
Wow.
Kardanchi, that's the one. Yeah. So yeah, it's just a different culture over there, and it's something I feel, the more I think about it now, like I feel so lucky to have been able to experience that. Like literally there'd be times where I'd be living with Japanese people, and this one time we had this house and there was like one heated room in the house. The rest of the room had no heat, and it was the lounge, which was also 6 people's bedroom. There was no floor space. Like literally you had to walk over futons just to like get anywhere. And my friend still took me in, and like I didn't speak a word of English for, you know, a month or 6 weeks, and we just went up snowboarding every day. And that was what we did.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. You've been going for like 12 years. Have you seen a lot of change in just snowboarding in Japan? Like I've heard that there's like amusement parks there or something. It's like pretty commercialized. It's kind of crazy. Like the experience of going snowboarding there, I guess, at a resort.
Yeah, I mean, the main difference that I've seen in Japan is that like when I went there, I was actually a host student when I went there for the first time. So straight out of high school in New Zealand, I went over for 3 months and lived with a family. And at the time I didn't really speak any Japanese. I'd studied it for like 4 years, 5 years at high school, but still, I arrived and they asked me, "Are you tired?" And I couldn't reply because I had no idea what they were talking to me about. and then 3 months later, I was kind of able to speak Japanese, and so it's like I didn't even know that Japan. Like I knew they had snow and mountains and stuff, but I didn't realize that it was like the powder mecca of the world. So I remember going there and it snowed my first day, and I was like making snow angels in the front yard and just like basically frothing out that it was snowing, because it doesn't snow at your house in New Zealand very often, maybe once a year, especially where I'm from, which is from the beach up in the North Island. But so for me, it was kind of that. And then, and there were no foreigners. Like I remember I'd been there for a week and I just approached this random like foreigner and said, "Do you mind if I speak to you about something? I haven't spoken a word of English in a week. I just want to have a conversation." and they were like, "Yeah, sure. What do you want to talk about?" And I can't even remember what I said. I was just like, I started talking about chicken or something. And where now, now when you go to like the likes of Hakuba or Niseko, like Niseko, I was there for a season 2 years ago, and there were very, very few chances to actually speak Japanese, because as a white person, you go into the store and they speak English to you. And there's just like Australians and, there's people from all over the world now kind of who have come to these little shred parts of Japan. So it's just different. There's still places in Japan that are super authentic Japanese. Still nobody speaks a word of English. And yeah, I mean, they're just so cool.
A couple of weeks ago, I was hanging out with a couple of the guys from the Five crew. I don't know if you're familiar with that company, but they had just spent several weeks in Japan. And Nick was actually the one I was talking with, and he said the biggest thing that stood out for him, I was expecting him to say just the blower powder every day or something like that, but he said it was the people. The culture is different. They live for each other. It's not like over here where me first. They were very concerned about everyone around them. Did you experience that as well?
Yeah, definitely. Like, there's a different kind of culture in Japan, and that like everybody, what you do is not for yourself; it's more for society. It's like for your family to be shamed is just, it's huge. Like if say for example in Japan, like if the girl gets pregnant, they get married straight away because it's like too shameful on the family type thing. And it's nothing to do with religion, but there's like this safe kind of, there's just this safe feel in Japan, and everybody who's been there would probably tell you the same thing. And it's just that, yeah, it's just seen as so bad. Like if you got caught stealing something from another person, you'd just be so shamed in Japan. Or that they would see it as you would be really shamed, whether or not there'd be any like finger pointing or whatever go on. But the thought of it, they just can't bear. So everybody kind of conforms and just goes and does their thing. And it probably hinders, like maybe it hinders creativity in some ways, but I think in other ways, Japan seems like one of the most creative places in the world. Because if they hold on, like if you see somebody like in Tokyo who's a punk, they are a punk to the craziest degree. And if they're gangster, they will have like the most gangster kit. I guess because it's quite an isolated society too, So I don't know, Japanese culture fascinates me.
Yeah, I'm always like really interested when I hear things about it, because it just seems like so different. I guess like if they are that, like shameful, or like that's such a big like is spring break doesn't exist in Japan, because like I feel like spring break here there's no shame to be found. Like they just everything comes out, it's all crazy. Like oh my god, I loved college.
Yeah, no, it's Japan is just so different. It really is. Like there aren't really house parties or anything like that. It's just like such a different culture, like you never just drink alcohol. Whenever you're drinking alcohol, there's always like snacks at least, or food, and people kind of like sit around a table, like you'll sit around, on the floor, and basically, it's kind of more of like a meal than like a house party where everybody's like leaning against the wall and like looking around and like scoping out, the next crew or whatever. So it's just so different. And for me, there's kind of just two normals now, there's like New Zealand normal and there's Japan normal. But it's funny for people to go there the first time because it is that different. It was, my first few months there were crazy.
It was probably a huge relief for your brain to be able to talk with that guy in English for a while, because you're probably really having to work like double time all the time to think when you're speaking another language the whole time.
Yeah. You don't really realize it until you do speak English and you don't have to think about every word that comes out of your mouth. Which is, I remember at first, like I almost felt like lazy speaking English, I was like, wow, I don't even have to like think I can tell somebody exactly how I feel. And there have been frustrating times in Japan where like, been in situations where I just really want to explain myself in English to get across the point, because it's kind of been a bit of a block in communication type thing. And I can kind of say roundabout what I want to say, but you can't.
Do you remember one of those instances specifically by chance?
There was a time when I was working at a resort, and I was an instructor at the time. This would have been about 10 years ago. And one of the like sister resorts had like a terrain park, and they had this spot just down from the resort, just out of the resort, where you can build jumps. And there's loads of people there. Like people build powder jumps there all the time. It's kind of like a big zone that's like 100 meters long, and anywhere along there you can build a jump. They're kind of small. They're not that good. We've actually filmed on them a couple of times, but we basically we're riding the resort, and we've been given passes. And this is the whole like losing face culture of Japan, I guess. And it was me and two Japanese friends. We've been riding the park in the morning, and we're doing some laps. And so we had the passes from the resort, and then from there we saw some other people like building a jump down in this kicker spot. So we were like, we want to build a jump into the powder. So we just walked down the road to the powder spot where these people were building this jump, and we were going to start building our own jump. And then this guy comes running out of the office and says, no, you can't go down there. You can't go down there. You can't build a jump there. So we were like, well, really? Because there's people down there building a jump right now. And he's like, no, you can't go. So we didn't want to cause any trouble, basically. So we just kind of, put our tails between our legs and went back, and then we hopped in the car and drove kind of just around the corner from where that was. And that they didn't actually even know this at the time, that we went to another spot and built a jump. But just us being from the sister resort, and like attempting to go out of bounds, what they saw as out of bounds, we didn't actually go. Like we did the right thing. We're like, oh, we didn't realize that you're not allowed to, because we legitimately didn't realize that you couldn't. There's other people building a jump there,
Right.
So we went to this other spot and built this jump in a different spot that they didn't even know about. They just thought we put our tails between our legs and drove home. So anyway, we get a phone call halfway home from like the manager of the resort where we were working. I think he was the head of the ski school or something. And like we got pulled into this office, and they were just like saying how bad it was that we had like got these passes and we tried to go out of bounds. And I was just trying to explain to them, like at the time, and my Japanese wasn't as good then either. I was just like we didn't know, we didn't go, and we did the right thing, like we legitimately didn't know. And they're like, well, you make our resort look bad by doing that, and that alone, as somebody from the ski school, is grounds to like take your pass off you, basically. So they took my pass off they took passes off all three of us for like a week. We couldn't ride outside of work just for doing that. That was a frustrating situation.
You brought
Wow.
great shame to the mountain.
Great shame, and
You dishonored your family.
Yep, dishonored the family. So that was one situation where I really wanted to kind of speak English.
Sure, so you could just tell them, very straightforward, and there was no, less of a chance of them not understanding what you were trying to say. They were just picking up on your very basic Japanese.
Yeah. So, and my two Japanese friends were there, and they were kind of explaining the situation as well. But I just don't think the guy cared. In the end, he's like, "Well, you've brought us shame. You must be punished."
You have to commit seppuku, or what is that like? What's the
Harikari?
Japanese suicide?
Harakiri.
Harakiri.
Yeah.
You have to yeah. What
samurai sword through the heart.
Yeah, right. Whew. Why was it such a big deal that you were building a jump out of bounds? Like, what?
Well, that's what I still don't understand, actually. The whole thing, bring it back up, kind of, yeah, it's just so annoying because people build jumps there. Like, people were building jumps there, and they didn't care. But it was just that we had come from the sister resort and had been riding the mountain with a pass and then had tried to go out there. I think maybe like if we didn't have passes at all, it would have been fine or something. But the logic didn't really make sense to me.
I run into the same thing out here on a much smaller scale, all under the English guys. I just grew up in the real mountains out west, and then I moved to the East Coast in this Washington, D.C. area. And the resorts out here, the snow is only on the trails most of the time. But sometimes in the winter, like this past winter, we had a great winter in my area, you could ride in the trees. Well, they don't allow that. There's tons of snow in the trees. There's the best riding ever in the trees. But
really,
you will get in trouble for riding in the trees if you get caught at the mountain that I live right across the street from. So I've been in the office a time or two with a very similar thing, but at least I can explain.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, because actually that's interesting you bring that up, because that's another thing in Japan is like people, it's one of the reasons why the like Niseko became as popular as it has. I mean, obviously they get a ton of snow, that region. So that's part of the reason why it's so popular. But the other reason is that they actually opened up, because Japan's always been really strict on like patrolling, avalanche patrol, and kind of going out of bounds and through the trees and stuff like that. Like if you get caught, you get, again, like if I got caught going out of bounds when I was working for this resort, I would have lost my pass. I would have lost my pass, lost my job. I would have had no idea what I would have actually done. What do they do on the East Coast if you go through the trees? They rip your pass or something?
Well, the first thing they want to do is put a mark on your ticket. So if you have a ticket, which I don't, I have a pass right across the street. So they'll run the pass and then put like a digital note in there now, so they can actually swipe it. They have some sort of little computer system on them and put a note in the system. Nate was in the trees at this date, and etc. If you have a ticket, they swipe it, and then if you give them any resistance feedback, then they take you into the office and you talk to the mountain manager, which has happened with me a couple times. And it's funny because I'm friends with the mountain manager, so you'll get the amped up ski patrol guy who's just so excited that he just caught somebody doing something wrong and his chest is puffed out and he's got one, And we walk into the office and Lonnie, the guy, goes, "Hey Nate, how's it going?" And you can just see the ski patroller deflate. Oh, these guys know each other. What did you do? Well, I rode in the trees. Well, why'd you do that? There was good snow there. Okay, you know not to do that? Yep, I know not to do that. See ya.
Yeah, the shame note.
Exactly. It's silly. So
So in Japan, it's quite similar. Like, yeah, they just have. So basically, that's the reason why Niseko blew up, but like as early as it did, because they opened up. They like had some patrollers who actually kind of, I guess, knew what they were doing, and they opened up the terrain, and they obviously hadn't seen any slide events, and foreigners just swarmed to the place because you could actually like ride everywhere rather than just the trails without somebody chasing you down and putting a shame note on your pass. And now a lot of resorts are kind of opening up different terrain, and there's still a lot of areas, like even in Hakuba, one of the biggest foreign areas, there's a lot of spots where you can't ride through the trees, and And the patrollers have their reasons. Supposedly, they say that they can't get like a banana boat in there and stuff like that. They can't perform their patrol duties properly. But then there's other systems they have there, which I find fascinating, which is like you need a vest. You have to get a vest. You have to have a high visibility vest to go through certain areas. So if they catch you going through there without the vest on, you get a ticket. And then there are other areas which you need like to go through a course where they tell you, like you need to go through avalanche training type thing. Similar to, I've been to like a terrain park, Stevens Pass in America, and you have to like sit through a safety course before you can ride the park.
Watch a video, sign off on a release.
Yep.
Yeah,
similar to that. But it's only like one like certain area,
I always picture Japan as being more rolling and not particularly steep. I guess maybe am I way off, or avalanche is a real threat there?
I think one thing with Japanese culture is that like if one thing has happened in the past at some time, then say like, for example, in Japan, if you've got your like, it's like there might be an avalanche. There is like the chance, it might be a 1% chance, but there might be an avalanche. So we'll just ban everybody from going down there forever.
Right.
Wow.
It's like they like to err on the side of safety on a lot of things. And I think it's also Japanese culture to kind of not question authority so much as well. I mean, I'm generalizing pretty heavy here, but yeah, I think it's even if it's like you said, somewhere that's not very steep, it's probably there's probably never been an avalanche there. If somebody closed it, if the patroller who's been there for 20 years decided to close it 20 years ago, then it's probably still closed now 20 years later. But it is changing.
Is it only like foreigners that are really breaking the rules? If that's the case, like ducking ropes or?
Yeah. I mean, definitely you go to the resorts and like my friends who like like are snowboarders, kind of, sponsored or semi-sponsored snowboarders will duck the ropes and kind of get those cheeky power runs. Most, the riders who have like, especially been overseas and stuff like that or local. But then there are a lot of like Japanese people who just ride the slopes, I guess because the powder's pretty deep in Japan. You kind of need to have a certain amount of skill just to be able to ride it.
Right.
Because it's a pain in the ass, if you fall over in deep pow, just getting out of it is a nightmare, especially if you're on skis or something.
Yeah.
Poles and skis and, yeah.
So you've kind of traveled the world, and you've ridden in the States and Japan and New Zealand and I think I saw maybe Switzerland, and you've really been all over. Where is your favorite place?
I mean, it's hard to beat home, which is Queenstown for me. Like when we get a good day in New Zealand, it's probably like you maybe being on the East Coast. When you get a good day at your home resort, it's kind of hard to beat. But yeah, Japan definitely has a place in my heart. But it's hard to pick one favorite. I was in France this year, like first time riding in France, and we were at a resort called Mirabel, and that place blew me away. Like just the size of the resort blew me away and the facilities. Like in Japan, all the facilities are quite old. Japan had like quite a boom back in like the 90s or like around the time of the Nagano Olympics, and they built all this infrastructure and nothing's been done since. Where like, and in New Zealand, like we have some resorts that are pretty gigantic, but some of them aren't huge. There's kind of like maybe 5 chairlifts at a resort. Where France, you get there and there's like, you catch a gondola to another gondola, and then you get to the top of that gondola and there's gondolas going in either direction, and it's like the most luxurious gondolas you've ever seen in your life, and all the facilities are pristine, and it was just insane. Like Mirabel is actually part of the world's, I believe, biggest ski area called Three Valleys. And you can ski to Italy or something from there, but just the size of the mountains in Europe really, really blew me away. Japan has some big mountains, like especially around Hakuba area, but they're not lift accessed. So it was really an eye opener, and like the facilities in Switzerland, like it's the most expensive place you could ever visit probably. But like you get your ticket in a heated building, and then you go up a heated escalator to the gondola, which is like super pimp Swiss engineered, like it's just luxury, and everybody in Switzerland can ski. Like you will see no learners pretty much. I don't know how it's possible. I think everybody in Switzerland just hops on skis when they're like 2 years old, which is it's quite different to what you see even in like in America and in New Zealand especially. There's quite a few. There's like tons of people learning, and quite a few people who can kind of like turn and cruise, but they're not fast. Where it's one thing I noticed in Europe was just how advanced everybody's level was, and just the embracing of the winter culture in Europe is like nothing I've seen before. Like they just live for the winter, it seems. The mountains are just such a big part of their life.
I heard it's such like a different culture. Like Opry culture is like so much different than the United States. I've actually been to Courchevel, but I've only been there in the summer, and
Yeah.
I was like blown away by the size and like and just I don't know, like everything's kind of like I felt like I was truly in a mountain town, like all the village or whatever was in the mountain or around the slopes, and like there were events going on that like the whole mountain town came out. I saw like a fireworks competition in Courchevel, and that was insane. Like that was like it was like this team was competing to represent France in the World Championships, so they were going like all out and blowing up fire like a professional fireworks display. And you could get close, like it's not like America where there's rules and safety and shit. It's like, no, you can get close and like feel the fireworks like almost, and it was insane. But I definitely got, even in the summer, I got this sense of like this is a completely different atmosphere and experience snowboarding here.
Yeah, it's funny though, because I mean, like the mountains there were so big, and like it was just so cool to kind of see everybody like embrace winter culture and stuff. But right before I went to Switzerland, I was in China, and China, the resort we were riding was literally like one chairlift. It was kind of like how Snowpark in New Zealand used to be. It's like my friends run in Nanshan, and it's basically just a terrain park, sunny every day, and still had like such a good time there as well. Like if you were to ask me whether I had a better time in China or Europe, I couldn't give you a definite answer probably. But
wow,
like yeah, facility wise, Europe was crazy. But yes, I don't think that answers your question at all, Nate. Sorry, but
no, I think it does, because snowboarding's fun pretty much no matter where you do it.
Exactly, and I think I mean these days it seems as well like the progression that snowboarding's taking is relying less and less on conditions. The likes of the Yorgoons and those type guys who are kind of creating their own environments on what is essentially just a flat, blue run, red run, or whatever.
Yeah, and just the fact that they're embracing some of the basics too. That how the carving and kind of switching a carve back to a 180 and all that stuff has really been embraced this year. Makes it easy for everyone of pretty much any ability level to really enjoy some of the fun of snowboarding.
Totally, and it doesn't matter if your resort sucks or it's epic. You're going to have a slope like that where you can practice that, right? So I'd say the progression of that stuff's going to actually go through the roof pretty quickly because it's so easy. It's not like a quad cork or something like that where you need a specially built jump and you need a whole team of people to even be able to try it. Plus you need the weather right, you need the rider's head to be in the right place. To learn a new carving variation, you can do it literally on a Greybird raining day at the worst resort ever, and it might break the internet.
Exactly.
It's funny we were talking about that. Like there is some like relatability in seeing the Yaguns, and they do amazing things, but it's on a place that's tiny. I've never been there, but from what it looks like and what I've been told, it's just a really, really small hill, and wouldn't necessarily consider it having a really good terrain park. I mean, the features they build are kind of crazy, but it's them building them to film on. I remember we talked about like snowboarding, like half pipes or super pipes,
Yeah.
and about how there's really very few of those in the world. Even in the United States, I can only think of like five off the top of my head, or like a handful. Um, and it kind of like there's really big disconnect. Even for me when I watch the Olympic or watch a big half pipe event, I'm like, it's cool, but I don't really ride half pipe because I don't really have access to one. You know,
Yeah.
so I
Well,
can, yeah,
that's what we're saying. It's like when when I was competing a lot more in slopestyle, and there was kind of talk of slopestyle coming to the Olympics and that kind of thing. It was crazy to me that there was talk of like adding, rather than having slopestyle, they were talking about adding a new length of luge course or something like that. And I was like, this is bizarre. Like, think about how many people can, have been to a ski resort, have seen jumps, have seen rails, have seen the terrain park from the chairlift or ridden through, and how kind of relatable that was. And then think about how many people like are actually like riding a luge course, like them adding another luge event is gonna, there's just nobody who's, I don't know, even like inspired to be a luger, because nobody sees it unless you're probably from a luging family. And I remember thinking it was so crazy. Like, what are there, like 10 luge courses in the world? But now when I think about it, like half pipe's not actually that different from that now. Like, there are probably only 10 Olympic sized super pipes that are, at that level in the world. So it's almost like the infrastructure required to be an Olympic level half pipe rider is near on as scarce as what it is for luges, which is kind of crazy.
yeah.
I happen to live relatively close to one at Seven Springs in Pennsylvania, and my neighbor and sometimes podcast co-host Paul and I are there like every weekend, and we're constantly checking in with like the dudes that make it and the management, just being like, hey, it's cool for next year, right? You're going to have some events, because it is, to us, it's mind-blowing that this is in our backyard. We're not really in the hub of the snowboarding world over here on the Mid-Atlantic and the East Coast, and it's a big investment for the resort to make. And we're probably two of the people that ride it more than anybody. And we come from about 2.5, 3 hours away. And there's a handful of other guys that come regularly, but it's not like there's hordes of people like we thought there would be when they first started talking about having a super pipe, because it is so random. It's people see it and go, oh, that's cool. And they might want to have their kids go down the middle of it or maybe right across the deck. But once they really go through it once, they go, this is intimidating. Like, I don't have anything for this.
Yeah, it's definitely intimidating. Like, so that's 22 foot, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, the big guy. Yeah, what's funny, I mean, I see the same thing. Like, at Cadrona, they have the super pipe, and the crazy thing is it's only open from like 8 in the morning until about 11 a.m. or something, or midday, So there's all the, like, especially in spring or before an event, there's like every country from around the world is coming to this half pipe, and they're up there at like 7 o'clock in the morning and they're home by lunchtime type thing. It's just so different to how I, like, well, what I was telling you about with my friends, we just have a gang of friends in Japan, or same in New Zealand. We just go up the hill, ride all day, whatever was in front of us, and then cruise home. It's like, now it's kind of like you're with your country, you go up, you ride it. But the cool thing is that like there's a they put in a mini pipe at Cadrona, which has a massive queue of people, because it's just so much less intimidating, like you said, and it's what people want to ride. I see the same thing. They, like in New Zealand, there's probably more bowls, like deep, gigantic pool, skate bowls than there are bowl riders in New Zealand. Like, in my hometown, they just put in a vert ramp with like 4 feet of vert, and it cost a bomb. And then the local skate store like convinced them to put in a just a mini a mini ramp right next to it, because they knew that, you know, there's only a handful of people who can actually ride a ramp with 4 feet of vert. And of course, like the mini ramp is like got holes in it and stuff already, and like because it's just used so much, there's always a queue. Like people get annoyed at how busy the mini ramp is, and it costs nothing. Where like this gigantic vert ramp, you know, is loved probably very, very passionately by a handful of people, but it's I mean, maybe the mini ramp will be seen as a stepping stone to the vert, but I think the smaller features have a big future in snowboarding as much as the bigger stuff.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, you know, if you put a big down rail next to a smaller down rail, you know, the smaller down rail is going to get hit way more often, even by like maybe better snowboarders are just going to probably hit that just because there's less consequence, and or it's, you know, it's just easier. It's just easier to ride, and you can learn more, and everyone can, or a lot more people can hit it.
And there's just more days. I mean, there's more days of the year that you can actually hit that, you know, like condition wise. And I mean, not everybody wakes up, you know, at 7:00 in the morning. It's like, right, today's 1080 day. Most people wake up and they're like, I want to go snowboarding. And I'm kind of tired. I might just want to ride the mini park. And then you get in the zone and the creative juices get flowing, and, you know, it starts to get crazy. But I mean, look at what Daewon Song does on a skateboard. You know, like he rides rocks, or he rides a curb, or he rides literally whatever's in front of him, and he's, you know, one of the raddest dudes out. He's probably never ollied down anything bigger than about a 60 in his life, and he's still rad. So I think snowboarding has the likes of Scott Stevens and characters like the Your Goons guys. I think those guys have a good place in the future of snowboarding anyway, just in the fact that it's so relatable and so fun, and the gnarly stuff will always capture people's attention.
Yeah.
Obviously, for good reason. And those guys who want to go upside down 4 times deserve some respect, because what they're doing is freaking, it takes a lot, you know, it takes a lot of mental ability to actually have the concept, want to do it, and then actually pull it off. But I'd say it's not what everybody wants to do on their snowboard.
Definitely not me. I want to circle back to something you mentioned when we were talking about resorts. You said the way Snowpark used to be. What the heck happened there, man? I heard something about it being a driving facility for cars or something, and then it was just like, nope, no more.
Yeah, well, they had it's a farm that was owned by a local family called the Lees, and on that farm they had snowpark. They had cross country skiing, like a cross country ski course that they've been running up there called Snow Farm for a while, and then off that they do tire testing for a lot of car companies. They do a lot of car commercials and stuff like that up there, it's called the Southern Hemisphere Proving Grounds now. So they still do a lot of commercial work, and that's like quite a big cash cow for them. But the son, Sam Lee, was a skier, and he always had this, you know, idea of having a park on this bit of land that they had, and basically they developed the concept into having a resort that was just a terrain park, and it was like no other place, like as far as you know, like media from all over the world coming in their off season, and just basically Snowpark would make everybody whatever they wanted. But I guess in that there was no like family market or anything like that. So I'm not entirely sure the exact reasoning as to what happened, but there was a lease. I think they leased it to another family for a few years who managed it, and then I guess there might have been some bad debts or something like that. I don't actually know, but then the proving grounds, the tire testing place, bought Snowpark, and they were talking about having, like, you know, countries come over and they could build them their own private half pipe or jump or whatever. But they pulled the pin on that, and they're just using the facilities for like conferences and stuff now. So it's a bit of a bummer because it was such a unique place. But yeah, it's just a hard one. Like, as epic as it was, I think it was probably pretty hard to get enough money from day passes.
Yeah, I didn't realize that it wasn't like a secular resort where the whole family would go. I didn't realize that I knew that it was an amazing park, but I didn't realize that there was nothing but the amazing park. And that's a hard business model, because how many pros are going to really come and pay for a day pass? You know, how many people are, it's like the local skate park problem, right? How do you make money at a skate park? Super hard, because, well, so-and-so's pro, he's not going to pay, and then his boys are with him, they're not going to pay, and next thing you know, the park's full of people that didn't pay, and you're out of business.
Yeah. Getting all this media attention for more media to come and get more media attention for free. So yeah, it is a bummer that it's not there anymore. But Cadrona's kind of stepped up their game, and you know, the Remarkables, where it's just a bit closer to Queenstown, and Coronet Peak's got a little park. Like, there's enough other little things going around, but I think, like you said, it's a tough business when you're not catering to the family market, because you can't, you know, like mum, dad, daughter, son, you know, you might stoke out one or two of them at Snowpark, but it's not like another resort where, you know, one of them can go off and ride the jumps, and one of them can go off and ride the moguls, and the others can, you know, build snowmen or whatever.
Yeah.
It was definitely a super rad place. I'm like pretty thankful that I got the ride there. You know, the few times I did were because I had some friends come this season. I guess the season it closed or whatever, came down to New Zealand to ride snow park, and it was pretty up in the air, and then it was gone. You know, and it was a rad place to be, and you always like, I don't know, the people there were just it just felt like it was a cool, really cool community.
Yeah,
people that rode there. I wonder.
It was good. It really was. It was a pretty special place in that regard. Like, as far as like a snowboarding culture thing.
So, Nick, as we're starting to wind down here, I've got a question for you. I mean, there's a couple of things we haven't even touched on. Of course, you're snowboarding. You've created an app. You're doing all these film projects, the Diaries Downunder. We haven't even touched on the fact that you coach, or that you write for some of the different snowboarding magazines, right? New Zealand Snowboarder Magazine. What if you're meeting somebody new and they say, "Hey, Nick, what do you do?" What do you tell them?
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting one now. It's kind of changed over the years. Like, I tell them that I'm a professional snowboarder / film producer, which is, I guess, what I am. But yeah, I do, you know, a little bit of writing, a little bit of whatever gets thrown my way, really. I don't like to say no to stuff. But I think, yeah, my ultimate identity is still a snowboarder, professional snowboarder, but it's not my sole source of income. It's just something that I'm stoked on.
Where do you get your work ethic from? I mean, kind of like as I was saying before, it's not very many people that take action on an app, and it's not very many people that actually produce multiple video series.
I think I've just been lucky enough to work with, like, Queenstown in general, I think is quite kind of like an entrepreneurial place. Like, it's a place that has so many opportunities in kind of like the tourism and the adventure tourism and just all the industries around here. And I've just worked with really, really awesome people. Like, I don't put it down to myself so much as the others who have helped everything else come to fruition. I think I just think I've been lucky enough to work with good people. I think is literally the reason it's all come about. Like, I couldn't do a single project by myself. I'm useless. But as soon as there's, you know, somebody else involved and there's somebody relying on you or whatever, you know, it changes everything. I think that's the motivation. I couldn't do anything by myself.
That can be so key. And I can tell you, we might not even be talking right now if it wasn't for AJ. We sat in my basement for the first episode and recorded the first episode of the podcast ever, but I didn't hit record. And I was so Yeah, I was so like flustered and over it. I was just like, "Oh, that's it. Like, we're not doing this. We're done." And AJ's like, "No, we got to do it.
They wanted to
We gotta
throw
do
all
it."
the equipment out. He said, "Fuck this. It's a sign. Let's burn this down." And yeah, but I motivated him otherwise that we should keep trying.
That's that accountability to
did.
somebody else. It's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where?
Have you hit the button on this one?
Yes, absolutely. Sometimes I give myself a heart attack like halfway through, though. Like, oh, did I? So where?
I'm always a little nervous now.
Where do you want people to find you online? Instagram, or do you want people to go to the Diaries, or where should people find you?
I think Diaries Down Under Instagram. So it's just at Diaries Down Under, and my own Instagram at Nick Hyne are probably the central spots where you can kind of find everything. Everything's linked from there. Isn't Instagram just a great tool? Instagram I think is probably the best spot.
I'm a fan.
Speaking of your Instagram, did you kidnap a 2-year-old child when you were in China, when you were snowboarding?
The future.
I did. My friend Marco. Those guys are awesome. Those guys, they run the terrain park over there. But the guy Marco, whose son I stole, he has a glove company, and I was just guiding those guys around Japan. He's like, "Do you want a signature glove and ride for us?" I was like, "Yes, I can design a glove, please." And now I'm just super friendly with those guys. Sorry to go off on a tangent there.
What's the company called?
JBMC.
Yeah. What is that? Is there a stand for something, or is that like?
I think it has a few meanings. The one that's public, I think, is Just Be Mellow Crew, which kind of sums up the guys. They like to cruise. They love snowboarding. Like, I can't think of a better crew for like getting snowboarding going in China. An Austrian dude and a Chinese guy kind of teamed up, and they made the magic happen.
Can you hint at one of the other meanings?
Oh, it's just too weird. It's just too weird, really. It's too weird. It's too weird.
The one that I heard was it like, I guess it doesn't really translate, but the closest thing they could say was like pubic hair crew or something that.
Yeah, you said it. So as I was saying, it's too weird to actually say. Like the pube crew, yeah. Yeah.
I don't even know what that. I guess that's like in certain languages, like things just make sense, certain like slang or whatever, or like even swears, and then when you try to translate it, it like doesn't make any sense. Like,
That's hilarious.
That would be one of those.
I think that's a good point to end on. Pubic hair crew.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please do us a quick favor. Please leave us a review on iTunes. It really helps our rankings, and it'll help more people find the show. Until next week, peace.
Thank you for listening to the Not Snowboarding podcast. To hear more episodes, go to www.notsnowboardingpodcast.com.